Alright, I thought, why not make a video on my coaching? Because, yeah, I like doing something else and copy pasting or writing the same comment over and over again. Let's just go into it. I'll just watch some of your gameplay and go over what my coaching will be consisting of. So let's just get right into it. Just live analysis, and then I'll start talking, right, a little bit about what happens in the game and how I approach how I approach improving certain aspects of the game. So you're early in the lane, and I haven't seen the matchup yet. All right. So that's the Silver Lux. So in the case of Silver Lux, yeah, you can actually push that, but you're losing minions. So right now you have to imagine that potentially, if you're really good at CSing, you can get, let's say, 95% income. Now, income, obviously, it's like investment funds, right? Like, it snowballs. You know, snowballing is another way of saying compounding, is another way of saying whatever exponential rates of blah, 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 blah. It's all the same thing. Which means that if you CS perfectly and you get an advantageous back timer and get a BF sword, if they back at that point, right, they shove out the wave, let it reset and back, they won't have a BF sword if they have 10% less income, right? Right now, you missed 2 minions, and it didn't seem to be a very, very, awkward situation with, like, minions de-aggroing another minion. It seemed to just be generally just not attaching that much value to it. If this happens, let's say if Doublelift misses 2 minions in a row like this, he'll be like, what is happening to me? Like, what is happening to me? Okay, well, stop doing that, because that's horrible. Like, I'm losing lane as we speak, right? The amount of damage you can take for minions to get some CS is pretty high. So if you miss them by default, that's pretty high cost. That is one of your first aspects of improvement, is simply going to an isolated, like, no, let me say it this way. So, first let me finish the point about economy. So, 2 minions out of 6. That is, what is it? So, that's like 16 2/3 times 6 is 100, right? So, 16 2/3 times 2 is 33 1/3. So, it's, oh, right. Oh, wow. It's just 1 and 3. Holy shit. I'm like, what? That is the most obscure way of calculating a third. Okay, so you're just missing 33%, right? Or a third. Holy shit. I can't believe that I just fucked it up. So anyway, so point being, that is, if you put your money in an investment fund and it was like, well, too bad, due to some random, just some random events, we lost, I don't know, like a third of the entire thing. Like, that's, I think you'd be worried, especially if that compounds. So if it's bound to go even lower after that, usually stocks bounce back. This income does not bounce back. You lost it forever. And this trading is good, but you're walking really far backward. So think about your position in the lane, right? So think about your position relative to these guys, right? Right now, you're slow pushing, right? So when you have a slow push going on, you have control here. And what you want to do is you want to be on the edge of this and take trading stances against these guys, right? So whenever they go to a minion, you're there to auto-attack them. And you're not backing off. You can make a little step backwards to de-aggro these minions over here, right? If you're 400 units, which is like a flash range, if you're 400 units out of their maximum auto range, right? Let's say this is their auto range, that would be over here, right? You can just step over here out of auto range and then walk backwards to the center, right? So you have 2 different zones. You have like the active trading stance, and then you have out of caster minion aggro, right? And if you auto attack, you should be going auto, move over here, and then when you see they de-aggroed, you walk back. And then potentially you auto attack again. Maybe you auto attack a minion, right? That's how you're moving around in lane. So that's very important to understand. If you look at pro play and you look at how they move around in lane, you'll notice they never will step back this far. Like, they will not be like 2 flash ranges away from the minion line like this. Like, you're barely not even in range to auto these minions, right? So make sure that you realize that this is if you look at, let's say, if you look at some challenger Smurf playing AD carry in silver, you'll notice how they play and how they start taking trading stances every single time they can. Be very, very proactive. The key is being proactive about every single input you do, really trying to squeeze out everything you can. So you do get back here for an auto attack. She should not be walking up here. There's a very simple concept, right? Let's say you have threats, targets, and points of safety, right? And very simple puzzle is how do you get to your targets, avoiding threats, and staying near your points of safety, right? Like, that's just the most fundamental aspect of, what would I call it? Anything with unit control. It's like, it's one of the most fundamental aspects of strategy games in general, right? So, for example, from Sivers' perspective, you are a threat, and she's the target over here. The Sona is the target over here, right? And in this case, a point of safety, you could say. Like, obviously, naturally, you want to just move directly away from the threat. So, if instead, let's say we didn't argue from a perspective of safety, we just want to argue, where does she move? She moves away from the threat and into this, right? So, if this is her auto attack range, or I should probably use a different color. If this is her auto attack range, right, around her, and this is your auto attack range, like this. Yeah, this is perfect. Yeah, perfect. Very smooth. I mean, I'm using a mouse. Give me a break, but you get my point. So that means that essentially this area right here, this little area, right, is where she wants to be. And since you can move, right, let's say you're going to move into your target, right? Sivir is your target. So if you think about where you're going to move, you're going to be moving into her little zone over here, predicting where she's moving next. So you're not going to move into her directly. You're going to move a little bit like this, right? Into this little zone over here, right? That's where you want to go. And then what happens is she has to move as far away as possible. So she's going to be going like this. Let me see. Do I have any colors remaining? Let's just use the blue for this. Who cares? Who gives a shit? Right, so she's going to be as far away as possible, riding along this edge, because you are going to essentially continuously cut off more of this space, right? So she needs to go right on the rim of this. And if she, let's say if she can survive your poke, right, then sometimes she can just instead think about the different aspect, which is where the Sona is moving, right? And that's going to be the turret, for example. In this case, she can just walk towards Sona's escape path over here, right? But that only happens when Sivir is able to, like, finish this or really, really heavily abuse this HP bar. So, I don't think that's really what you want to do if Sona has full mana, because she can sustain back up. She might not need the base. But those are the different aspects that you're at least considering, right? That you're evaluating. So here, you see, Sivir did not make that little move command there, right? Which is not too surprising. Like, if we look back on that, look at this. Look at how she walks down to the side. So here, she should be walking directly in, and she's going towards the bottom. She's way too scared of you. She can tank a few auto attacks and hit that Q, right? She doesn't. That's a really big blunder. That really impacts this lane a lot. Then, like, Sona just walks up randomly. For no reason at all. So here this minion is dying, right? So you gotta, like, this is why you need to practice in isolated environments. That's my next point. So I'm gonna take part 2 here to talk about how to practice some of these aspects. Alright, so part 2. I'm gonna talk about how to practice certain lane fundamentals, right? So trading is a matter of, like, respecting everyone's position, knowing if you can kite into someone, or if you have to dodge, for example, the Lux, but you want to go into the Sivir, so you have a curved path like this. Maybe you don't want any of that, maybe you just want to auto the Lux and back off, right? There's all these different paths that you can take, and they all revolve around a different concept, and you're gonna learn to evaluate them quickly as you play the game. However, there's some parts that you can also practice out of the game, and that are very hard to learn while you're playing. And that's what I'll be talking about, of course. So, here, do I have a pause button, or do I need to manually pause it? Okay, so here you want to anticipate the fact that, looking at this, there's one minion on this, and there's two minions on this, right? You see how you lose that minion due to a lack of foresight on the minions, right? And how these minions are going to die soon. Like where they're targeted. You want to be focusing with your eyes. Essentially, your eyes want to constantly be moving. So you want to go like, bloop, 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 bloop. Right? You constantly want to be like just going left and right, to and fro. Oh, check the zone out for 1 second. What's their health bar like? Okay, let's see this minion. Which minion on their side is dying? Right? Like, where are these minions headed? You want to figure out, where are these minions headed? Where are these minions headed? When is this minion dying? Okay, mini-map. Okay, well, what's this guy doing? What's this guy doing? And the faster you can do that, you can imagine this is very, very high speed, right? I can't keep up with that all the time. So you have to start making choices on what you focus on and how quickly you can analyze all these things, right? So you're like, potion, no, look at this, okay, yeah, 83, okay, yeah, door sealed, okay, yeah. So you have 100 things to watch all the time, right? So your speed at which you can process the information and look at it and process it is crucial. Now that's very hard to practice, that's very hard for me to design a routine for. All I can say is do it as quick as you can and focus on that in your games. I can't really verify it. I can look at the results, but I can't really look at the process itself as it happens, right? It's just hidden below the surface, essentially, right? Unless you have like an eye tracker, I can't really tell, and that's fine. Like, that's just how it is sometimes with certain parts of coaching. I can only say it, and it's up to you to see what you can do with it. Now about the CSing, right? So you want to have a little bit of damage foresight here, based on your AoE damage, right? The interaction with Tristana's passive thingamajiggy on the E. Right? So for example, here you see this minion is being targeted by all of these, but you target this minion. So you want to look, that means you're not looking at the fact that these are going like this. So either you didn't look at this over here, or you didn't register it. You need to see, if you actually analyze where are these going, you can see this one's going over here, this one's going over there, and this one's also going over there, right? These are going to target this minion. This minion was A-OK, this wasn't really targeted, right? So you want to auto that minion. Also, you want to be closer, right, to be able to easily space around left and right in all directions. You essentially want to take spots in the wave here where you could move in all directions as a response to whatever your enemies are doing. If you approach the lane from the outside, you can only move in or out. And this is in Challenger, you see 100 billion interactions with people having to respect zones and then entering them. That's just, it happens 100 times in every lane. And they want to prevent it at all costs. They will take negative trades to stay within that zone rather than having to step out of it, because they know they'll have to re-enter it, and that's going to be hell, right? Because you're telegraphing what you want to do, and you have to make that move at some point. That's a very complex game theoretic concept behind this that I won't go into because I don't understand it myself. I have no idea. But in practice, it's pretty clear how it pans out in IALO. So that's not a problem. Talk about it later if needed. You see here, that's why you lose some minions here. Like, let's say 10% of your minions at least are lost this way, just because you're not really, like, here as well, you see this minion is now at a rate where it's gonna tank 2 more hits from these casters. If you notice these casters are hitting it, you know that your AoE damage is not gonna kill it, and then the next hit is gonna kill that minion, right? So it's that little damage foresight on the minions, which stems from looking at where these minions are going, and then calculating which minion you need to hit first, right? So you can leave this one alone, hit this one, and then kill this one, then move on to this one. And the sooner you map that out, in your mind, the more you're like, okay, I know when I can hit this one. This is one hit, and then after the second hit, I can hit it. So in the meanwhile, you're just like, okay, I can focus on these guys for a second and focus on the minimap, right? I have a little bit of time to space around in this lane and pressure the Sivir, cut her off potentially, right? and then you know, oh, auto attack and keep going. And then you know when this one dies, auto attack and keep going. If you're doing that little foresight, you're gonna have more time to think about the other aspects like trading, right? So right here, you could be auto attacking her because she's stepping up as well. So you need to be looking at your minions, remember? So it's like you want to look at where your minions are headed, the HP bars, right? Draw a little plan. And then you want to be looking at your enemy and how to counter their plans, right? Figure out when they want to CS, when they're moving up. You can also just do that reactively a little bit, but you want to take trading stances on dying minions. And if what you ideally want to have happen is that your minions are dying. If you're ahead, let me talk about it this way, right? If you are ahead, then you want to make sure that your minions die at the same time. Oh, wait, I screwed it up. Sorry. Let me say that again. If you're ahead, you want to take trading stances on your minions and make sure that you can punish someone with a little trade or auto attacks, whatever, when they step up to hit the CS. When you're behind and they're the ones taking trading stances on you, you want to make sure that they have to attend to a CS when you last hit. So what you're going to try and do is last second just walk up when you see someone auto attack. That's when you want to auto attack as well, right? And just trade CSs instead of, you know, being punished for it. So, and that's what you want to prevent, right? So the person who's ahead wants to prevent having to auto attack when someone's taking a CS. And that is, again, that is another step in lane planning, right? This is where you move towards a higher and higher elo, where you start planning ahead every single little auto attack, every single little minute little action. If you're really good at that, then the more complex things like trades or like skirmishes and fights to the death are going to be easier to play out as well. Here you should be pressuring along with the Sona. Even if you disagree with her decision, you should be walking up here. This minion is now dying. You need to hit that minion. So, right? So here, you know, this cannon minion is just pounding on that one. So that was very good. You threaten an auto attack, she backs off, you walk back to a neutral position in this lane, and you start hitting a minion. That's completely fine. This is really good. So here you're already slow pushing. If you're really far ahead in lane, you don't always need to finish the slow push. The slow push is a really good way of getting early levels. If they start running out of mana like this and out of health bars, you can start walking up and abusing them more instead of like maintaining the slow push. Especially since you see the Malphite's top side, so there's no junglers to worry about. Otherwise, you would want to build a big enough slow push so that it becomes hard for the enemy to stay close to you, and therefore if they walk up for the gank, they have to telegraph it. That's not relevant in this jungle matchup, that's not relevant with the jungle positions, but that's the general point I want to make. So this Lux is essentially ruining the entire wave management of this lane because she's constantly slowing down your push, which is good for you. The slower you push, the more you deny, right? You want the minions in the lane. You don't want them under turret. You just want them under turret eventually to complete a push and get a base timer if you want to, or just go deep ward Malphite's jungle, that kind of stuff. But you don't want them under your turret in the isolated lane itself, right? You're gonna deny them when those minions are in the lane. Here you should. Alright, so this is part 3. I just cut off for a second. So, haha, wow. You see, this is a little bit. I want to just go back to this minion because it is. If you practice this in an isolated environment, I will promise you that you will perform better than this, right? Because you'll be focusing on it. I think, like right now, you're mostly looking at where they are. That's what I'm thinking, that you mostly, if you had an eye tracker, that's what I'm betting is like 90% of the attention is, where are these guys going? And that makes a lot of sense, but you do need to start making an adaptation to break out of, let's say, the local optimum that you're in right now, where you just don't hit that many CS. Like, you can win lane against most of these players you're facing, but if you're against someone who's equally skilled at trading, but they hit every CS, you're going to automatically lose. You would be like, you got essentially you missed almost 50% of your CS right now. So, you know, you need to get like 10 or 11 out of 12 in the first 2 waves in order to compete with high reload AD carries who get 10, 11, or 12 every single time on the first 2 waves, because they're just looking at where the minions are going, they're timing their auto attacks, and then, you know, they just then have to look at where you are and if they can trade. Even if you lose a trade, if you lose a few trades, if you had perfect CS right now and you had to go base and they shove a wave under your turret and you lose that entire minion wave, you would still be ahead in CS if they CS'd the way you did, right? They could have had 19 CS at, what is it? So you got first wave at 130, second one at 2 minutes, and the third one at 230, right? So before 250, you could have 19 CS. You could already have enough CS to base and be ahead of CS, right? Even if you miss an entire wave after that. So that is very confrontational. If you want to essentially win the lane, you could have lost every single trade so far and just had perfect CS and you would win. Trading only functions to get a small little advantage in the lane in terms of experience and gold, right? But the CSing right now is a way bigger deal. Unless they int and just die for no reason. But if they even just base and respect that you're out trading them and they have perfect CS, they will just auto win. Right, they shouldn't be walking up like that. You're abusing that very heavily. It does seem to me like you're very attentive to what they're doing in the lane, which is good, right? So you got one thing figured out entirely, and then you can just focus all your efforts on another thing in an isolated practice environment like Practice Tool. And that's how you get your play to another level that you naturally wouldn't achieve in game, because if you now spend more attention to the minions, you might not get that many more at the start, and you're going to be worse at trading. So you're not gonna that is what I call a local optimum, right? Where essentially moving in any direction doesn't get you any further unless it's a big step. And you just, let's say you do 5 practice drills in Practice Tool. Yeah, then it's gonna make a difference. 5 times 10 minutes of CSing practice will improve you more than 50 hours of gameplay where you just happen to be focused on CSing. It's like the difference is insane. Here you can't just hard shove this wave with E, just use all your abilities, right? I guess you can wait for the BF sword, but even then you still want to just hard shove this wave, for sure. So don't slow push it, don't miss minions. I want to go over that one more time. So here, this is a really awkward one, because your minion over here, right, is targeted on this one. That's the biggest deal. You also have an armor focused on it, or what is it called, melee minion. And again, these do a little bit more damage than your auto attacks. And then as you get levels, they no longer do. Then you have slightly more damage than they have. I think they do 72. 24 times 3, 72. So now you officially do, what is it, 7 damage more, because Doran gives you 5 on hit, right? Okay, that's a good concept, so it's good that you're at least shoving it towards the end of that. But yeah, it's all about those minion setups. Like, just there again, like 3 minions, boom, you lose what? 33% gone. Can you prevent that? And then the question is, how much do you care, right? So my job is, like, the reason I go over it 100 times is to try and sort of drill it in as hard as I can. So you can just, like, get all of these minions to, like, what is it, half health, right? And when this happens, when you know how much damage this E does, I don't know this by heart because I'm not a Tristana player. I don't know how much a level 2 E does relative to level 1 E by heart. But if you do know how much that roughly does, and you notice, for example, that did like a little bit more than half HP, just get them to half HP and then kill them. Get all 3, safe margins, right? Yeah, this is really nice. This is really good, really sound. Yeah. It's unfortunate that you didn't get the kill. I didn't know if you could already get them with R. If you want to be safe about it, you can just like flash auto R, right, or flash auto R. But that's not really a point. I think the level at which you respond to the lane, like the trades and the all-in situations, is just vastly higher level than, let's say, you're CSing and auto-spacing in the lane. Like, how you space around while you have autos in certain locations to attend to. Like, obviously these minions, since these minions have little zones around it where you can get the auto attack, it puts a little bit of a limitation on your positioning. So if you're ever outside of this circle and a CS is dying, your movement becomes very predictable, or else you just give up free gold, right? So that is a very common theme in high elo play. It's just trying to get people outside of those circles, if you can, right? To force them in, which is really easy to abuse with trading stands, or to essentially just deny them a minion entirely by zoning them off of it. Okay, so that's enough for this one. That's just a little bit of lane mechanics, a little bit of examples in lane. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that wasn't too much of a roast. I really like the fact that you have certain pronounced strengths. I think, for example, I already said it a few times, right? The way you trade. One example of that right here was that you take that proactive decision to jump in. A lot of people would just be poking, just be auto-attacking. You're not afraid to use your Sana for what she's good at. Which is, again, another, like, quote-unquote local optimum. Some people fall into that trap of bad habits where they're like, well, poking works for me, and if I just all in and I don't know exactly when I can do that, well, then it's not going to work out for me, so why would I train that, right? You're aware of when you can do it, so it's working out for you. You're not in a you're not stuck in that way, right? And the better you are at one thing, the more you'll benefit from the other thing, right? Because you are in silver, you do need to realize that just by 1 hour of CSing practice, you could gain more than a full tier in terms of skill. If you go from, for example, from 70 CS at 10 to 80 CS at 10, that is more than 10% economy. That's going to snowball tremendously as you get your BF sword. You're already good at trading, so that is double the value, right? If you suck at trading and your CSing goes up by 10%, it doesn't really matter. But if you're excellent at trading, and then you get another 10% in the aspect that you're weaker at, you're going to snowball really hard. Alright, one last little note on wave management. Make sure you deliberate every little action, right? So make sure that if you look at that wave and you're like, they're not in lane, I can get some plates, hard shove that wave with E instantly. Alright, eventually you use that E on the minions. That should be like the moment that they leave lane or that you get a kill or whatever, you should be hard shoving that and trying to get those plates if you can. Get that 1300 gold, go base, right? So that should be like tempo, the feeling of tempo. Like essentially what I sometimes say to coaches is like, League is not a speed run, but it should feel like a speed run. It should feel like you're constantly being pressured to be faster, better, more accurate, quicker. Do everything you can, right? One little minion, one little second, everywhere. Everywhere we can find a little second, a little minion. Like, you can do that 100 times in a game, and suddenly you have 2 minutes, you have snowballing, you're just levels ahead of everyone else. That's what you want to achieve. Alright, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.